Pack your things and get out. You're fired.
Sarah didn't just say it, she broadcasted it. She made sure all 30 executives in the regional quarterly meeting heard every single syllable. The man she was pointing at was Arthur. He was 62 years old, wore a faded blue uniform with art stitched over the pocket, and had spent the last 5 years quietly emptying the trash cans of Apex Global Logistics. He didn't look like a threat. He looked like background noise. But Sarah, the newly appointed 29-year-old senior vice president, loved an audience. She needed to establish dominance, and a janitor accidentally squeaking his mop during her PowerPoint presentation was the perfect target. "This is a high-performance environment," Sarah sneered, crossing her arms. "We don't pay you to disrupt multi-million-dollar strategy sessions with your incompetence. Leave the mop. Security will escort you out." Arthur didn't flinch. He didn't beg. He just looked at her with calm, piercing blue eyes, let go of the mop handle, and did something that made the entire room freeze. He walked right past her, sat down in the empty leather CEO chair at the head of the table, and pulled a sleek, matte black smartphone from his jumpsuit pocket. Seconds later, everyone in that room found out exactly who Arthur really was.
To understand how Sarah made the biggest mistake of her life, you have to understand how she climbed the ladder. Sarah was a corporate climber who believed in two things: optics and ruthlessness. When she was brought in to optimize the regional office, her first move was to cut costs and intimidate anyone she deemed beneath her. And to Sarah, Arthur was the lowest of the low. For months, she had treated him like an invisible ghost. She would deliberately drop papers on the floor for him to pick up. She would snap her fingers to get his attention. Once, she even made him clean her coffee spill off her designer heels, laughing with her assistants while he did it.
Arthur always complied. He never complained, never argued, and always maintained a polite, quiet demeanor. The rest of the staff loved him. He knew everyone's birthdays, brought in pastries on Fridays, and always had a kind word for the overworked interns. But to Sarah, his kindness was weakness. She didn't know that Arthur was watching everything. She didn't know that every time she berated an employee, cut a benefit, or cooked the numbers on a report to make herself look better, Arthur was taking mental notes. He wasn't just cleaning the floors. He was auditing the company.
The tension in the boardroom was thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah's face flushed an angry crimson as Arthur settled into the executive chair. "What do you think you're doing?" Sarah yelled, her voice cracking. "Get your filthy uniform off that chair. Someone call security right now." Nobody moved. The rest of the executives looked at each other, suddenly noticing something they had missed for years. Arthur's posture wasn't that of a defeated janitor. He sat with absolute authority. Arthur tapped his phone screen once. "You don't need to call security, Sarah," Arthur said. His voice wasn't the raspy, submissive tone he used in the hallways. It was deep, resonant, and entirely commanding. "In fact, I've already called them. They're on their way up. But they aren't coming for me." Suddenly, the massive LED screen behind Sarah, the one displaying her quarterly sales projections, flickered. The PowerPoint presentation vanished. In its place, a live video feed appeared. It was a broadcast from the company's global headquarters in New York City. On the screen was the board of directors, sitting in a nearly identical boardroom. At the center of the screen was a placeholder for the chief executive officer and principal shareholder of Apex Global Logistics, A.V. Sterling. A man whose face had never been published online, who famously ran his multi-billion-dollar empire via proxy, believing that a leader should see how his company operates from the very bottom, not the top. Arthur looked up at the camera in the room. The board of directors on the screen instantly stood up and bowed their heads. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," the board chairman said through the speakers.
Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The paper she was holding slipped from her fingers, scattering across the glass table. The room went so quiet you could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. "Mr. Sterling?" Sarah stammered, her confidence instantly evaporating. No, this is a joke. This is a prank." "It's no prank, Sarah." Arthur, now explicitly Mr. Sterling, said smoothly. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. 5 years ago, I realized this company was losing its soul. Innovation was down, employee turnover was at an all-time high, and toxic culture was spreading. So I decided to do a hands-on audit. I took a job where people show you exactly who they are when they think no one important is watching. He looked around the room, making eye contact with every executive. Some of you passed the test. You treated the janitor with respect. He worked hard. But you, Sarah, Arthur's eyes locked onto her, cold as ice. You failed spectacularly. Arthur tapped his phone again. The screen behind him changed, shifting from the board of directors to a series of financial documents, internal emails, and hidden camera footage. "Over the last 6 months, I've watched you bully your staff, falsify expense reports to fund your personal trips, and take credit for the work of your juniors," Arthur revealed, his voice echoing in the bright, silent room. "I didn't just let you fire me today to make a point. I waited for you to do it because I needed to see if there was a single shred of leadership inside you. There isn't." Sarah's knees shook. "Sir, please, I was just trying to maintain order. I can explain." "You're done," Arthur interrupted. "You wanted to fire someone today to show your power? Well, you got your wish. But the paperwork you just signed off on internally to terminate Arthur the janitor triggered an automatic clause in our corporate bylaws. It gave me the immediate grounds to review your contract for cause." The heavy glass doors of the boardroom swung open. 2 burly security guards walked in, straight towards Sarah. "Sarah," Arthur said quietly, "pack your things. You're fired." The executives watched in awe as Sarah, completely humiliated and sobbing, was escorted out of the building she thought she ruled. The atmosphere in the room instantly shifted from terror to a bizarre sense of relief. Arthur stood up from the CEO chair. He smoothed down his faded blue jumpsuit, walked back over to his mop, and gripped the handle. The regional director cleared his throat nervously. "Mr. Sterling, what happens now? Are you moving into the corner office?" Arthur smiled, the warm, familiar kindness returning to his face. "No. The corner office breeds blind spots. I like it down here. I see everything." He began to wheel his yellow mop bucket toward the exit, but just as he reached the door, he stopped and turned around. The executives held their breath, waiting for his final directive for the future of the company. Arthur looked at the regional director and chuckled. "Oh, and by the way, tell the new VP that whoever they hire to replace me better get a raise. These floors are a lot harder to keep clean than they look." With a wink, the billionaire janitor walked out into the bright hallway, leaving the executives staring at an empty doorway, finally realizing that the most powerful man in the building was the one they had been walking past every single day.